Welcome to the Choice, Change and Action podcast, where you get to choose, change and take action to create a different today and a different future. These are my stories of choice, change and action, along with the phenomenal guests I have on here. From a really young age, I've always desired to create a change in the world. The planet has been a constant inspiration to me, and Access Consciousness has shown me the tools to know that anything is possible. And I keep choosing. What are you going to choose? Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Choice, Change and Action podcast. So today you obviously have me, Simone Milasas, your host, and you have Melanie Meade all the way from Ireland today. So welcome, Melanie.
Thank you, Simone.
So it's bright and early for you, right? Is that right? Morning?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Sun is rising as we speak.
I love it, but you're up. Thank you for being here. So I work with Melanie. I've worked with Melanie for quite some time. She's also an Access Consciousness facilitator, etc. And one of the things that we were talking about the other day was extrapolation. And I think a lot of people don't know what extrapolation means, or that they're actually capable of extrapolation, or maybe they have a capacity with it, or that it can be a tool that they can add into how they create not just their business, but their life. So I'm going to ask you first off, Melanie, what is extrapolation for you?
Well, for me, I didn't know I was doing it naturally my whole life. It was in hindsight, through working with people like you, I started to realize it's a way that I actually, I always was. It was so funny because years ago, when I think back to previous work I was in, and something would show up and people would be talking as to why something happened, and you needed like a solid reason. You needed to land on one particular reason as to why this thing would occur, or how this thing showed up, or what this person was thinking. And I remember I was always the person on the side standing there going, there's a million ways that this could have actually happened. And I realized that I could see things from so many different places, that there was more than one channel to land on anything, basically, to land on with life or with work or with the way that I saw things. And I just think there was something wrong with me, because it used to actually annoy me when, you know, you'd hear people say, well, it must be this. And I'd be like, it could be all these different reasons. So then when I started working with you guys, I started to notice that the way that we would sit down and look at stuff was way more like extrapolation. So I felt really at home, and kind of, it felt more natural to me. But at the time, I still didn't know it was extrapolation. It was something that I would discover along the way. So basically, we would look at something and we would ask a lot of questions, and we'd move around. You know what I mean? It wasn't like A plus B equals C. So that's it in a nutshell. But it was so funny when I look back, you know, like I call it my previous life, like when I used to work in local government and stuff, it was something I was always doing, but other people weren't. So I never actually had it like nurtured or played with, or I never fully kind of got into the flow of maybe what extrapolation might have been. And that's kind of like the starting block of what I would have found it to be for me anyway.
You know, thank you for the way you described it. And what I noticed, and if you're listening to this, maybe you may have noticed this as well, my body just went, like it was this like breath of fresh air. And I'm wondering too, like, I mean, you worked in government job, I worked in government job years ago as well, and all these, you know, corporation, whatever it is, it's like wherever you're working, it's like, you know, have you been given permission to be that creative? Or I know that what I was taught a lot was you have to have that place of like, you know, this is how it showed up, this is what showed up, you know, how it showed up, when it showed up, what was going to be created, what part of it was right, what part of it was wrong, like all of that. And it's like, what if every single thing you've ever been told about that creation, you found out was a lie? And what if you were actually capable of extrapolating? And extrapolating, as Mel said, it's like, there's a billion different possibilities available. I mean, one of the things I've been doing at the moment is rereading, or actually I should say re-listening to Magic You Are It Be It, which is a book written by Gary and Dame. And one of the things that they talk about is, you know, not being in control. So I'm not sure if any of you noticed when you were listening to Mel talk, is my whole body just relaxed. Like it literally did a sigh when Mel started talking about extrapolation. And my sense is, for me, it's like, it's an acknowledgement of how I be, and it's an acknowledgement of how I create. And how many of you have not been acknowledged for how you create and how you choose? because I mean, I worked in government for a while as well. I worked for the Department of School Education in New South Wales, you know, and all these different other corporate jobs, etc. And it was so much about how something shows up, when it shows up, you know, that it shows up. Basically working out like that pros and cons theory, or, you know, exactly how it came about, or where did it, you know, how much does it cost, and what was right about it and what was wrong about it, and all of that, rather than the magic. And, you know, for me, I started rereading a book written by Gary Douglas and Dane Heer called Magic, You Are It, Be It. And I've really noticed a piece in that they talk about it in is, if you were not trying to control everything, what could you receive? And to me, when you look at something like that, the way you described that, Mel, and you went, you know, okay, this is what's shown up. Let's not try and work it out. Like, there's a billion different ways, as you said, that something could show up, and how it shows up and why it shows up and when it shows up. What if we were willing to be out of control and then receive everything? And for me, the way I describe extrapolation, if this works for you out there, is there's, as Mel said, a billion, and they're literally, she's not incorrect. There's a billion things possible, right? And for me, you just have them out there in the entirety of the world. And it's sort of almost like this bold and italic, where you just go, you're walking along and you're on a project, or you're doing something, and something just goes ping, and it's like, oh, there it goes, ping, ping, ping. And you start to pull different aspects of it in, and you may pull something in, an aspect, but then it sort of rearranges itself as well, and then like pings over here and then grabs something else. And it's just this continuous play, extrapolation. And I think for me, a really big sense of this is not about the rightness and wrongness of it. It's about the play of what is actually possible.
Yeah, and it's funny because if you get very stuck on the A, B, C, D, that's all you're ever going to see. Like, you'll refuse anything. Like, you won't see it. It's plain and simple. But the other side of it, as well as a creative person extrapolating, like, I've had to do a lot of work on not feeling wrong for the way that I see things or the way that I do things, or, you know, like a great one people would say is, where do I fit now? And really stay in question and actually allow things to show up. Because if you have a desire to contribute, or, you know, to, you know, put your attention on something and it's not looking the way you think it should, you actually have to like relax. So a lot of the time I need to find this thing that I can do so I can do. It's like, no, it's like, ask and it will show itself. Because like you said, it's almost like as if by magic, things will just start to appear. One of the things that I do a lot is I'll just have read or spoke to someone about something I've never done before. And then the next thing, somebody will come looking for information and I'll have it. Do you know what I mean? Like, as in, they always laugh about people having an amount of useless information. But now I trust the process. Now if I'm interested, I'm listening. I don't decide that Simone's going to ask me about this later on today. It actually just so naturally shows up. And that's where the play begins. So it's actually like being creative in life and then allowing it to unfold in numerous different ways.
So how much would you say that is got to do also with trust? Like, I want to say trusting the process, like trusting you, trusting what you know.
Yeah, it's massive. It's massive because there's times you're on a roll, like things are going well and you're like, oh, this is great. And then something will change. And it could be anything. It could be something small will change. And then all of a sudden that way is not going to work anymore. So you're going to keep trying to fit it in there, you know, kind of get this to work, or you're going to ask a question. And it's not like, I think a lot of the stuff that will show up is you kind of go, God, am I useless? Do I know nothing? And it's actually, no, you have to ask a different question. It's changed and you're not creating on your own. It could be from business to being a parent to relationship. There's other people involved in creating. Do you know what I mean? So you have to be extremely fluid in the way that you move with stuff and the way that you ask questions to keep moving forward. And the more I've done that, the more I've learned, like, that I knew different stuff. Like, I was far more, you know, like I thought I knew this much, but it turns out I have this whole other spectrum that I can, you know, get into and explore. But the thing is, it's trust and it's also question. You have to keep asking. I can't be, you know, like from that space of judgment or from need. Actually has to be, okay, so what else? What else do I know? How can I contribute to this? And not decide, just allow it to actually unravel, because people will show you as well.
You know, thank you for saying this. There's a couple of things that have come up for me as you're talking. One is, and this might be a little bit harsh, but how many people go to like a narcissistic point of view that it's mainly just about them, rather than what you've just also described to me too, is it's such a much bigger picture. There is so much more involved, like in everybody's lives, in what's happening in the world, in, you know, I mean, money comes into it. It's like all the different relationships and all of that. And if we stepped outside of just it's interesting. Sorry. It's a fine line, because I always go, okay, what if you were choosing what is true for you? What if you were choosing what works for you? Okay. But also, what if you're choosing what works for you with this much bigger world that is available to you? So this much bigger scope, so that it's like, it's not you being, the significant part here. You are the source, and you are a catalyst for change and creation. And yet, what if you actually listened to what was going on around as well? And noticing, like you said, like when things change, like the direction changes. Okay, so what questions can I ask? What can I be with this person? What can I be with this project? What can I be with this relationship? Like, what can I be with, I don't know, the government, the whatever it is that's showing up. So I like the way you describe that. I don't know if that is clear for people or not, if there's another way that you can say that.
Well, I'm not sure. It's a funny one, because it's simplistic in theory, and then you could dive down into it. But the one way I would put, like, and moving almost from extrapolation, like, but the one way I would put it is, because, as you were saying, like, there can be that, like, is it all about me, or is it all about everyone else? But it's like, every change in the world starts with you. Do you know what I mean? Like, I might not be able to fix something that's going on away over here, but it's like the butterfly effect. If we actually all looked at showing up as ourselves, a lot of this wouldn't, like, we'd be far more, I wouldn't say a lot of it wouldn't be going on. I actually stop myself saying that, 'cause what's going to show up is going to show up. But we will create and choose from a different space with things, where it's not fight, and it's not fixing, it's actually allowing and unraveling. So as much as, like, relationships and business, you might try to control an outcome. I'll do this, so I'll get that. I'll have my need fulfilled, or I'll feel better, or whatever the story may be. It's the same with everything else in the world. Just allow it unfold. We have to, exactly what you said in that book the guys had written, the magic book, is actually just let go of control. Like, we can still be active participants without having to control how things actually show up. And actually, it'll probably show up way better than what we think it would if we just allowed it to unravel.
Trying to give that one a shot, Mel. Allowing things to show up better than if I was trying to control everything. It's like, in January, we did this 6-day event, which, about Gary and Dane in South Africa. And one of the things that Gary said and I know I spoke about in the podcast that we did launch last week on Magic, when he said, what if there was no control? And it was just like, what? And so I've been playing with that, and I've realized so many things that I would like to control. I pretend I'm not controlling it, or I'm just controlling it a little bit. But if I was truly willing to let go of everything, what else could show up? Like, what other magic is available? What else can I receive? What other ideas? What other, from true extrapolation of, we say the world is our oyster. What if the world was truly our oyster? And there's so much more available.
Yeah. And it's funny, because what I do as well is the way I look at it, like you were speaking about that with the 6-day in South Africa about control. For me, it's the story I'm telling as I'm going to choose it. So you actually, like, you have all the clues already. Do you know what I mean? You start listening to yourself even, and you'll start to see everywhere that you're either slowing it down or stopping it. Again, because you can't control everyone else, but you get to choose everything that you think and say, and the way you move through the world. So what I started doing is started actively listening to the way that I might say something. And I started to learn that a lot of the time, how would I put it? A lot of the time you'll start moving based on the past, not on the future. Usually because you don't think that you actually are capable, or you've got it. Like, this is fine. You can do this. You're kind of going, if I do this, this person's going to do that, or that's going to go on, or what do I need to be to make this okay? And once I catch myself doing that, I have to change it straight away. But that's where the magic is. And that's where things will change without even trying. It's your willingness to be something different.
Yeah. And I learned that years ago when I was talking to Gary about something and talking to a staff member. And I said, if I have this conversation, blah, blah, blah. And he went, well, he said, you'll get the result that you've decided will work. And I was like, God damn it. Because it was like, yeah, he's right. It was like, I was looking for a result that I had decided would work, rather than the allowance of what else is possible beyond what we could ever imagine.
Yeah.
Like, what if that's what we were
It's kind
asking?
of like pulling that pin for the extrapolation to occur.
Yeah. And I love the way you talk about that, Mel, that you can navigate your choices navigate how you move through life with your choices, and what choice are you choosing in this very moment. Like today I had a really weird day. I'm usually pretty happy, like all day, and I have ease and I have all of that. And I had some stuff show up today that I was just like, I was fucking cranky. Like I was cranky, and I was like, and then someone sent me something and I went, no, I don't want to do anything. I'm like, feel like I'm done. And it was like, but what I did was I just indulged. Poor Sarah Watt, who we work with, was probably got the brunt of it. And I was like, no, I just want to quit. I went, I'm not quitting, but I just want to quit. And I was like, I'm indulging. And she wrote back and went, I'm not really quite sure what to say to that, but, contributions, my friend. And I was like, great, And I knew at that moment I had to choose something different. Like the one thing I know is I'm not quitting. I'm not quitting consciousness. I'm not quitting access consciousness. And today was just a little bit of a frustrating day. And I get also that as I step into changes, it's that wanting to hold on to shit that I've defined as me for so long. And all of a sudden I'm letting go of it. What the hell do I do now? So what I did actually go and do is I went and had a bath, and I listened to Andrea Bocelli, and I had this beautiful skylight that is, because it was like afternoon sort of thing, this beautiful skylight that looks up, and I could see all the clouds coming past, and I listened to Andrea Bocelli, watched the clouds going by, and I didn't look at my phone, and I lay in the bath, and I was like, okay, what are you going to choose now? What are you going to choose? Like, because everything is available. Like, could I quit? Sure. Am I going to? No. But what if you allowed yourself that indulgence in whatever is going on, so that you can have this space to choose something different? Like, stop trying to make it right and not making yourself wrong for being cranky, I was like, I'm cranky. And I was like, who does it belong to? Great tool. But I was like, you know what? I want to claim and acknowledge this. I'm cranky, and that's okay too. But it's like, but what if like you said, every choice you make is how you navigate through life, and that ability to extrapolate the possibilities of what else is possible, and also knowing, I want to say, who to call and who to reach out to, because the one thing I didn't want to do was talk to someone or be texting with someone who was going to align and agree with me. It's like, I was looking for what question can I ask myself and what can I be that can change this, I knew that I could change this. Like, how am I going to change it? I don't have an idea right now, but what action can I take? So, wow, I didn't think I'd be talking about that today, but there you go. You're my last port of call here on here, Mel.
Oh my goodness. Well, it's funny, like we started with extrapolation, but there's just so much to it, because I would never been able to describe what it was before. And like I was saying earlier, it's so simplistic in the statement, but so much can go with it. You know what I mean? In order to truly embrace, actually, because a lot of us are entrepreneurial, or we love being on the creative edge of stuff, but that can be quite challenging because you're moving, like you're leading from the front. And when you lead from the front, you've got no path, you've got nothing to go with, only trust and question, and that contribution that shows up. You know what I mean? So it's not like, a bunch of roses all the time. There's moments where you got to really, dig deep and see what you actually want to create. Not like all these things that everyone's going to love. Sometimes it's like, maybe it'll be somebody else's idea later everyone else loves, but you've moved in that direction to begin with. That kind of way.
Yeah, well, I had some chats this morning with people I work with, and I was like, hey, I'm getting really bored with some of the stuff I'm doing. And what if you acknowledge that? It's okay. Okay, I'm getting bored with some of the stuff I'm doing. Okay, what else is possible? What else can we add here? What else can we choose? And one of the things, I actually had lunch with some friends of mine and talked about public speaking, because I was like, oh, that's stepping outside of my comfort zone. So what if we start looking for public speaking spots and doing that rather than, all the media stuff that I'm doing? And I'm like, okay, what if I did something different? And really, like, I think, like, extrapolation for me is so much fun when you're extrapolating with people who are really capable of it. And one of the key elements of extrapolation for me is you cannot hold on to your point of view, and you cannot make it about who or what is right or wrong. Like, true extrapolation is just like, okay, it's almost like throwing everything in the hat, and you're pulling something out and you go, oh, this. And then someone goes this, and then this, and then this. And your idea or somebody else's idea may have created the spark, but that's not actually where you end up going. It's somewhere completely different. And it never has to be like, oh, that was my idea or this was my thing. It's like, no, it's not something you own. It's how you contribute. And for me, I love surrounding myself by people who can extrapolate and be that creative aspect, because then I get not just my creative aspect, I get your creative aspect, and then, maybe someone else that we work with, creative aspect. And then also, I think there's this level of extrapolation that you can do and be on your own with your life.
Yeah.
Like I did today, just going, okay, I'm going to have a bath before I do this, all this media stuff. And have a bath and just, lie there, and what's going to be, comforting for me. I even was like, should I have a glass of wine? And I went, I don't even want to drink. Like, I was like, I didn't even want to drink. I was like, I want water and listen to Andre Bocelli. Okay, let's do that. That's two things. But that's extrapolation as well. What's actually going to contribute? Not what am I hiding, or what am I defending, or what am I trying to prove? What's going to contribute to changing this and creating something greater?
Yeah. And I think one of the greatest gifts, because the fact that you're even noticing what's going on, like a lot of people will move through the world never noticing that that's what's going on for them. And that's one of the greatest jails you can live in. It's really looking at, this is what's showing up. What choices do I have now? Like, what can I do? Is one of the greatest ways to move forward. So like, that's when you were just talking there, it's like, I'm so grateful for the tools, because it gets you to that place where you become way more aware of those kind of things, and you don't have to hold on to them. But you should never have to suppress them either. It's okay to be cranky. I'm a huge advocate for that. I'm always like, better out than in, better out than in.
Yeah, I'm like, my golden rule is, if you're going to choose it, enjoy it. Like, if I'm going to be cranky, enjoy it. If I'm going to be angry, enjoy it. And what I find is, it takes up a lot of energy. So, like, after a little while, you're like, I think I'm done. But you allowed yourself to have it, So, yeah, give yourself permission to be awe, basically.
Exactly.
So, Mel, is there any other questions or anything that you would add to this on people looking at, I guess, like the beginning of extrapolating with their own lives and with others?
I think a lot of it really is just to be, like, it's exactly what you just said there about the day that you had, is to be kind to yourself. You know what I mean? And definitely, like, the minute you find yourself going into your head, you might be in a spot of bother, but like, we're all going to do it at some stage. We're all going to either get cranky or try to make something work, but it's recognizing the space from which you choose, and then really looking at what else is possible. But it's going with this flow. And there will be times, like, control isn't, like, there might be times you might have to speak up or step in. Like, that's okay. Like, don't start going down the fluffy route of what letting go of control is. But the more you just start the journey, the more you'll start to notice. And there were things that I started paying attention to, even though I was really good at extrapolating. Take it to the next level was actually just observing myself and the way I was choosing and how I was choosing and the space from which I chose or still choose or whatever. And then really go on the adventure and allow things to show up. So now when I think I'd like to add something to my life, or I'm looking at something else, I don't really go, oh, I really want this. I'm like, oh, what else? It matches an energy, and I might decide it looks like something, but then I'll just open up and see. Because a lot of the time I try to figure out maybe because of the way my brain worked, people would always ask me how, and I could never answer. So I grew up thinking I had to give people how. So part of it in my head is, how is that done? So once I catch myself doing that, I take a step back and I recognize that I actually know what I'm looking to create. I just don't know how or what it's going to look like. So that's where I go and play. So all I would say is, if it starts getting really weird, treat it as a game. Do you know what I mean? It'll start showing itself to you.
I love that. And one of the demands I made for myself a few weeks ago in South Africa too was to throw the how out, chuck it out.
It's so trained into us. That famous, like I think everyone would have heard the story of, like, the maths equation. You can't get the marks unless you show them the how, but you just know the answer. And It's immensely frustrating for
Yeah, and then your how has to be the same as what the teacher has decided their how is, etc. And if you didn't get that how the same, then you'd be marked incorrect. And it was like, wow. So
and do you know what really annoyed me was when my son went to school, they had a different how, so I couldn't help him. And I was like, oh no, I was like, the how changed.
I never said how, and now it's the wrong how. So everywhere that you're trying to work out the how and get the right how, so that you can, it's pretty much like validate, this reality. Will you please destroy and uncreate it? Right and wrong, good and bad, pock and pot, all nine shorts, boys, COVIDs and beyonds. And start the extrapolation of you and your life and your being, and what is that going to be? And like we've sort of been hinting at too here, it's like, you stumble and fall, you have a cranky day, you have a good day, you have all this stuff go on. It's like, don't make it personal. It's like, choose, just keep choosing. keep choosing, keep choosing, keep choosing. Because you gain so much awareness from every choice that you make.
Yeah. And one of my favorite things that you would say too is like, you can't really make a wrong choice. You know, as you said, it gives you more awareness and you choose again.
Every time. I've had so much awareness today. I did not enjoy being cranky, but I gained a lot of awareness, a lot of download. Yeah. So, Melanie, thank you so much for coming on here. And everyone, please, join us on the Choice, Change and Action Instagram. We've got that up as well as my Instagram. And if you subscribe to the podcast, we send you all the notes, etc. Plus, we're on YouTube, so you can go and check us out on YouTube. Melanie and our bright, shiny faces, me at the evening, and Mel's first thing in the morning. So, yes. And thank you so much for joining us here, and we will see you next time. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Mel.
Thank you.
Bye. If you enjoyed this podcast, please make sure to hit the follow or subscribe button on your favorite listening platform to get notified of new episodes. We read all the reviews, so if there's any topic you would like to hear about, let us know. If you'd like to know more about the tools, information, and classes mentioned in the podcast, head on over to SimoneMilasas.com and follow me on Instagram at Simone Milasas, or the podcast has its very own link on Instagram at Choice, Change and Action. Don't forget, you can download the show notes. And lastly, have way too much fun today.